Well, yo, yo, yo! Here is the deluxe Unicron from the Cybertron line that I got sort of at the beginning of the year as a bit of a belated Christmas present, and yeah, I was pretty stunned with just how good it actually turned out to be, and I thought, yeah, I'm going to have to show everyone just how good it actually is, and all the detail in nice HD, and so here we go. Here is his weird vehicle mode. It's a tank that looks a bit like a sort of squashed, I don't really know, it's slightly like a pancake. It's very orange, it's very wide and flat, and it's got some really chunky huge wheels at the back which aren't rolling too well because of these bits that get in the way sometimes, and overall it's just something completely different and just radically new as a mode for Unicron, because he doesn't turn into a planet for once. He does, however, of course, retain a lot of those sort of little design features that the planet mode would have had. He's got the big sort of chompy mandible horn things at the front here for, I don't know, grabbing onto stuff. But he has got a sort of cockpit there and, you know, treads along here. It's a mix of different things, but it is just still 100% Unicron because it looks completely beastly and jaggedy, and it's got these weird spiky bone type pieces hanging off the side, and well, it's got a chompy bit in the middle. You can sort of operate this bit by hand and make it go nom nom nom, but you're supposed to jam the orange Planet X cyber key in there, which you can see has a Decepticon symbol moulded in there, but not painted, so they sort of try and make it all like, oh no, not Decepticon of course, although that's the only symbol we can put on the box. Stick it in the hole back here, and at first I didn't think it actually locked in there. I thought you just sort of pushed it in and it made the thing go chompy chomp chomp, and that was like the action feature. But if you really wedge it in until it clicks and it feels like you've put it in far too far and you're going to break something, then that stays open, and there's a little triple-barreled gun in there, just like the big Supreme Unicron would have had in his chest, that would never actually stay hidden behind these doors if you ever got it out. Along with the Planet Key nom 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 feature, he does have this really big, tank cannon. It's a tank after all, it's going to have a big cannon on it, and it fires a missile. But I've got to say, this one, coming to me loose, I don't know if it was because of the guy who had it before me, but it is pretty temperamental. You can put the missile in there and it won't always click shut, it will just sort of ping out by itself, but I'm sure that's just a problem with mine and not an overall design flaw. Of course, being Unicron one gun wouldn't really be enough to cause planet-wide destruction, so he's got a tiny machine gun that's on a ball joint back here, and I suppose you could say this red thing is some sort of, I don't know, it could be a radar dish, or it could be a ray gun majig. I don't really know, but there you go, there's the vehicle mode. It looks like it could cause some destruction. It's certainly not a planet, but it's definitely 100% Unicron, and I really like it, even if it really could use a bit more paint just to pick out all the detail. All along these panels there is loads of stuff, and there's just a smattering of this, I must say, very nice metallic purple paint, but it just feels like it could do with a tiny bit more. Just realised holding it up this way it looks vaguely like a Space Invader. Now, to transform this thing, you're going to need to take off, well, you don't need to, but I'm going to take off these weird sort of bony, spiky bits, which of course are meant to sort of look like they're part of the planet ring affair that he should have. So they're like broken bits of that, and they are very jaggedy and, detailed, like funny antenna doodads or whatever the hell the planet ring bits were meant to be on big Unicron. But I've got to say, can someone tell me, is this the colour they're meant to be? You might not be able to tell on camera, but they sort of look like they're normal grey plastic, but they've slightly yellowed and faded a bit. I don't know, maybe it's just to make them look a bit more deathly, and who knows. But take them off and chuck them aside. Then you're left with a more streamlined, less spiky orange thing. You can go and untab these two halves. There's these sort of prongs here that slot into the sides of the treads, and sort of swing them out because, oh look, what are they going to be? they're going to be legs and feet once you've done all that. So now you've untabbed the sides, you can come underneath, pull on this black piece which is obviously a crotch, and wangle that sort of all down there and out of the way, and you can sort of straighten the legs out, spin the waist round, and well, these big orange panels, they're on all these hinges and joints and they can move around, but I've got no idea why, because you do not need to move them for transformation at all. They peg in down here by his ankle and they stay there perfectly fine in vehicle mode. I assume that's where they're meant to be, and I can't really tell if you're meant to do anything with them for robot mode, like spin them round or splay them out, because I don't have the instructions. So, leaving that all sort of extended for a bit, you can come up here to the front, untab these grey bits with the treads on and swing them to the sides, and rotate the whole sort of bone white panel up and there, and then just sort of push everything together. You can bring these bits down, they're obviously arms, and tab the shoulders in up there. Take this big flat front piece and push that up, and then push that in, and that will make a sort of chest groin piece. Come up here and grab the big jam coloured radar dish bit and snap that down and turn it round, because it's got a pair of horns on it, so it must be Unicron's head. And the only thing that's left to do is sort out his hands here. Now, he's got the sort of big mandible claw bits on there, and I find, to be honest, that's an option, that you can just leave them like that, and then they're big stabby things, or at least leave one like it and open up the other, flip his fist out and condense all that back, and you've got a sort of look like the Prime Unicron has, where he's got one arm that's all pointy and the other one is more like an arm. I don't know if this is the right way around, it might be the other arm, but you can do that. You've got some options here, just leaving bits mistransformed. But I'm going to go ahead and transform properly so you get the full effect, so you can bask in the unholiness of this dark effigy. So here we see the Unmaker in his slightly more diminutive form. While of course being a Cybertron Deluxe, he is still a pretty hefty figure. He's definitely a lot smaller than Unicron that you might be used to. I'd show you a comparison with the giant Supreme Armada one, but I gave mine to Dorian, so I can't. And this is now the only proper Unicron I own, apart from the John McDonald's one, but let's not look at that. All in all, in robot mode, he is, well, obviously a lot more Unicron. He's got the head with the horns and he's got spiky shoulders, the details of which are pretty much spot on to the larger Armada version. He's got some arms with some spikes going on somewhere. There's 3 wheels in the tank treads, and each of those wheels has 3 markings on. There seems to be a lot of sort of tri-fold symmetry going on here. Every detail has to have sort of 3 of. He's got the chest with the opening panels and the gun inside, like the big Power Links gimmick that the Supreme one would have had. But of course he's got massive cannons on his shoulders, and to be honest, I think that looks good. Not enough bots come with massive shoulder-mounted tank cannons, and when you can sort of hold it like that and doom at people. But I have to say, what's even nicer about this figure is the face. Look at that. It's all horrible, and it's a skull. Behold the visage of doom! And it just looks like the Transformers version of death, and that's what this guy is, and that just fits really well. And of course it fits with the fact that this body is meant to be a smaller form cobbled together with parts once his larger bit's been destroyed, so it's like, bits of a mangled corpse come to life. It's very morbid. But yeah, it's still very Unicron, even though he hasn't got a moustache. Taking a closer look at the rest of him, it is all just more standard Unicron fare. He's got sort of long legs with big pointy bits, he's got big pointy claw-shaped feet, and all these bits down here move around. For some reason they go all the way back up there, when I'm pretty sure they need to stay there, otherwise he won't stand up. But yeah, he's got all the joints you'd want. He's got good knees and all the swivels and ball joints at the hips. He's got a waist swivel behind this panel, and it doesn't really get obstructed by it, which is good. Of course, when you move the legs a bit too much, all these bits are going to get untabbed and start waffling around everywhere, and I don't like it, why don't they just stay there, why do they need to be on hinges? But his arms move good too, got all the swivels and stuff in there, and elbows, he just hasn't got any wrist movement. So, you can get him into a good variety of poses. He's a little bit limited, but it's a Cybertron figure, so I suppose you should expect a measure of that. The only other sort of slight fault to be found in his articulation is that bits can be a bit loose. I don't know if it's just the way that this one is, but sometimes you can have him stood like that and he'll just sort of sag like that, because there is a lot of weight in his top half. I mean, look at all this back here. These wheels just don't move anywhere, and they just jut out and just left to be, well, extra weight and make him really back heavy. And it's not very good that his feet don't have very good heels. You can get the pointy bits involved in robot mode in a number of ways. You'll see they are sort of 5mm posty bits. So you can go and stick them just back on his legs so that there's more sort of pointy bits. Maybe he could, I don't know, knee someone and that would do more damage than his already axe-like kneecaps. Or you can have him sort of hold them in this, well, odd way. I really don't know if that's sort of right. That's the only way that these pieces will fit, because of course one's got this longer bit on the end. I don't know if it's meant to make some sort of stabbing implement or a claw, because the way that the top one has to go in his hand and sit, it means it overlaps over the bottom one like that. And I'm not sure what the effect they were going for here was. Maybe it was like a claw, maybe they're meant to be more separate, but they just don't sit that way. Yet another in a long string of weapons I've encountered that I have no idea how one would use. I guess if you want even more added pointy stabby things, you can take the horn pieces from his arms and lower them down like that, and you know, you could go stabbing someone like that, or use it to climb the side of a mountain. I don't know. But of course there is one thing that his Unicron lacks, and it is size. Of course, being known for being, you know, the biggest Transformer, you don't get many that are planet-sized, and this, being a deluxe, will lack that sort of quality. But I suppose you just got to remember that it's different. He's smaller for a reason, you know. He turns into a tank and it's all different because he's been blown up and stuff. But let's have a size comparison anyway. Lacking any real Supreme figures. Apart from Omega Supreme. That's how he stacks up next to him. Yeah. Or we could have a Grapple. They're both orange. Yeah. And there he is with Lugnut, a figure that everyone should have. So you can sort of gauge the size. For a deluxe, he's pretty big. But being a deluxe, he's comparatively small to a lot of other figures. And don't forget about the light piping. But there you go. There is Deluxe Cybertron Unicron. I've got to say, it feels like one of those figures that is just so crazy and different enough that it really does warrant a place in anyone's collection. Maybe it's because it's Unicron and there aren't many of those, and if there are, he's always a planet, and this isn't a planet, so it's a bit different, and it's just nice. It really is. It's one of the sort of Cybertron designs that comes across as, it is very Japanese. There is a lot of Japanese sort of design influences here, I can see, with the really pointy bone-like pieces on him. You know, he looks like a sort of Japanese demon, or something you see in Digimon, or something else that betrays my limited knowledge of Japanese culture. But overall, it's just, it is so good, and I for a long time I did regret not picking this guy up at the time. Back in the heady days of 2006. This is a sort of oddity in recent Transformers lines that is really worth a look if you're up for a weird new Unicron that doesn't tower over everyone else. Because once you remove that whole size argument from this figure, it is just flawless, really. There's really nothing that I can really point out that is bad about it. Maybe it's the wheels on the back, you know, they just sort of sit there. This is a bit of kibble. What is that? You know, how many Cybertron figures had pretty bad and sort of massive kibble? This guy is just a nice testament to the days when Transformers were big and chunky, and they could go completely mental with some of the designs, and I don't think any other figure personifies that sort of completely crazy idea base as this one. Well, there you have your extensive look at this smaller scale uncreator. Definitely recommended. Of course, it's whether you can find for a good price. Blah blah blah. Go and buy a little Unicron, because you won't regret it. Your bargaining posture is highly dubious. Proceed on your way to oblivion.